Kyla, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm so thrilled to have you on. I feel like since watching you on Real Housewives and then since following your journey, you are one impressive woman. So I'm really grateful that you've taken the time. So thank you.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
So for those listening, let me introduce Kyla to you. So she's known as the Champagne Dame. She's a single mother and the host of the most decadent champagne experiences. Kyla offers champagne masterclasses, has a champagne club, travels to France with clients, and in 2017 launched Australia's largest online champagne retailer, Empire Champagne. Sorry,
Emperor.
Yeah. Emperor Champagne. And Kyla was also, as I mentioned, on the last season of The Real Housewives. I want to start there. That must feel like a lifetime ago, does it?
It does. It's weird because, obviously for a period of time, but it's top secret.
Yes.
So you can't tell anyone who's been cast.
Yeah.
So you're silent until filming starts. Then we had a year of COVID, so we actually cancelled filming for a year, and then we ended up getting special permission to film during COVID.
Oh, really?
So, and then it's obviously editing and then it's released. So it is a lifetime ago, I think. Yeah. I can't even actually remember what year it was. Maybe it was 22, maybe it was 23.
Yeah.
It feels like a long time ago.
Why the show?
Who knows? I often ask myself the same question. What were you thinking? No, look, actually, I was approached a number of times to go on the show.
Right.
It's not something that I wanted to do or sort of sort out.
Yeah.
When they were recasting the show, the producers went into the market and said, who would you recommend to be a great housewife?
Yeah.
And apparently I was recommended numerous times, and I don't know whether to take that as a compliment or not. But many taps on the shoulder, and I actually said no so many times.
Did you?
No. It's not for me. I'm busy. I'm a mum. I've got things going on. I run a business.
Yep.
And then the big producer, Mr. Brian Walsh, the CEO of Foxtel, flew down to Melbourne and he said, Kyla, you are mad if you don't take this role. I mean, you work in champagne, the audience of the show is, gay men and women and that's your audience.
Yes.
So come on board.
Yeah.
So I said yes reluctantly and just hung on for the roller coaster that was Real Housewives, which is nuts.
Was it just, again, it would have felt like a lifetime ago, but just watching it, I watched it more recently again.
I don't know whether I could do it,
Did you watch it? You watched it, yeah?
I watched it.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, my ex-partner, my partner at the time, didn't watch it.
Oh, okay.
And so we would go up to my farmhouse on a Sunday night and we'd all sit around in a room, my family, my friends, and we'd watch the show.
Yeah.
And it's actually really painful to watch because it's such a traumatic and intense thing to do. You think that the drama is manufactured. It's not. It's actually real. And I couldn't get my head around this. I'm like, how are these – I've never fought with a woman in my whole life, I love women. I think women are the most amazing creatures, and all of a sudden I'm having an argument with a woman.
Yes, and you came in with a splash.
I did come in with –
I loved it. I'm so here for the drama always. Came in with a splash, and from memory you were at Janet's place and you changed the flutes, the champagne flutes, and said, I brought my own. These are the glasses you want to be having champagne in.
Yeah.
Was that strategic?
That was constructed, So, you're a bit of a lamb to the slaughter when you start a show like this. The other women have done it for 6 or 7 seasons and you're brand new and they're like, the producers in here, Kyla, put your champagne glasses in, put your champagne glasses in.
Yeah.
You learn over time that they're kind of setting you up for failure.
Right.
And then the drama naturally evolves.
Yes.
But this was a bit of a setup. I was sort of thrown under the bus because, people that know me and my clients and my friends are like, Kyla, you're actually a really down-to-earth person. You're a funny person. You're a pretty relaxed person.
Yeah.
Yet, the way that you're portrayed on the show is not necessarily you. Now, I don't think that there's, necessarily bad behaviour that's poorly edited. You are who you are.
Yeah.
But, I was maybe thrown under the bus in that first episode and, things kind of went from there.
Yes.
And I'll always defend a woman. If I see someone treating someone else badly, I'm going to step in. And I saw a lot of that on the show and I did. I stepped in. So that just meant that I was strong voice and became the centre of conflict.
Well, what did it do for your brand? I'd be interested to know coming off that show.
It's interesting in that I think that a lot of women were either aware of me or became aware of me because of the show.
Yes.
I don't know whether it changed the bit. We did sell a lot of glasses, ironically, after that episode. I don't deny that. But it's funny how many people do watch the show and come and say hello. And you know what's weird is that every year I go to Paris to host my champagne tours, and Housewives airs in different countries at different times. Yep. So I get a lot of people coming up to me in the bars from Norway or from Canada or from somewhere else because it's screening free to air in their country at the time.
Right.
So I'll go to Paris next week and I'll be in a bar and I'll have a whole, group of particular country coming up to say hello.
So pretty, ultimately a pretty good decision then, having been on the show for your brand?
Not probably good for my mental health, but yes, okay for my brand.
Okay.
And there's discussions of Melbourne Housewives coming back, and there's a lot of chit-chat around whether I will do the show again.
Yeah.
I've been asked to do some other shows, and I might be doing something new. We might have to wait and see.
Okay.
Not Housewives, but another reality format. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what we do.
When you say mental health, was it during the show you just found it really overwhelming because of all the arguments?
Awful.
What was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I literally went home in tears every night.
Did you really?
Every single night. And, during that time I was in a really difficult time in my relationship with the father of my child, and there's no stone that's left unturned. That there are sort of rules and boundaries on the show that you don't talk about someone's children. You're not allowed to attack someone's career. I mean, they certainly did with me. They questioned whether I worked in Champagne or not. Given I've been in Champagne for 20 years, I thought that was a bit odd. But anyway, and my partner was opposed to the show, and he's a very private person. And, we were going through counselling and we were, trying to find our way in the relationship, and that was really difficult.
Because, I mean, that's pretty confronting. I remember seeing scenes of you at a restaurant and you're discussing, what is our relationship going to look like? Do you literally have camera crew by your table in your face as you're having these discussions?
Yes. And to be perfectly honest, it was very difficult, and we actually had camera crews come in and film one of our counselling sessions. In fact, there were 2 scenes that were filmed that were cut from production because they were so traumatic. And the crew were crying and I was crying, and it was just, there was a scene where my partner said, Kyla, I think this is over for me. This is done. I'm out. Yeah. And it was devastating for me, and it just the crew as well, because they get to know you personally. And I remember the producer saying, Kyla, those scenes were so painful. We don't even think we can air them. It was just really, really traumatic.
Was that the first time he'd ever said something like that to you? And it was on camera?
Yeah. Yeah, very, very hard.
And so I guess what did you learn? What did you get out of counselling? And I say that because we've got a lot of parents who tune into this show, a lot of people who are like, wow, we're since having children, our life has changed. I might be a businesswoman like yourself. I might have other things to do, and then my relationship's falling apart. What would you say to them based on your experience?
It's interesting being let's just put it into a human context. We have a lot of things that we do in our lives. We have our careers.
Yes.
We have ourselves as a parent. Yep. We have ourselves as a friend. We have ourselves as a partner. So there's different compartments of us in our lives, and they're all challenging. And you've got to try and navigate through all of these sections of your life. Yep. And when something so fundamental like your relationship is breaking down, it impacts everything. Yeah. And depending on you as a person, how strong you are, your mental clarity, your ability to communicate is whether you need that outside interference. I also think that, that the strength of your relationships is really important. Now, I've got great friends. I'm able to articulate and talk. So sometimes counselling is not as important to me because I get to have those conversations. But when things really get to a point where you can't navigate through them, you do need a counsellor. You do need someone just to give an outside perspective. The problem with counselling is that it's really hard to find the right person. And when there's 2 of you who both have a difference, so my partner is a very loving, very open, very communicative person. And I'm a loving person too, but we approach things differently. Trying to find the right counsellor that works for 2 people is a challenge. Yes. And that took time. And our first counsellor passed away tragically. And then we had to find someone new, and it took a couple of goes. And I recommend that to people. Counselling is not for everyone, but if it is for you, and I think everybody needs to do it, it's like tuning and servicing the car, go and do it, but find the right person. And I eventually found my right counsellor, and he found his. It helped to a certain extent, but we realised that separation was the right path for us. I fought it for a long time. He went to London to see his brother get married again. I said to him, let's go to dinner. And I said to him at the bar, I said, you know what? I'm letting it go. I'm going to let you go. But we're going to do it gracefully.
How's it been co-parenting?
Great. There's a bit of hurt there, and once you get through the money thing, the money thing is really difficult. I made a promise to him that I would exit the relationship gracefully and that we'd show people how divorce is done. And we did. There was a little bit of hurt around the financials, getting through the money discussion. That I think that changes people. But, even last night I had to do something really tough last night. I had to reconcile with my sister because my mum's really sick, something that I've regretted or have not done for a long time. And I called him for support, and I could have called a friend, I could have called someone else, but he's a person that's known me, loved me, supports me, and quite often he's my first port of call when things go wrong.
Has it been difficult with either of you, even just dating or seeing him date? Has that been difficult?
So he took me to dinner and he said to me that he had met someone, and, it's funny, we're at a restaurant and it was me and my daughter and him, and he was saying to my daughter all the reasons why he loved me, and I got up to go to the bathroom and I said to the waiter, can you point me to the bathroom? And he goes, wow, your husband speaks about you so beautifully, like it's so nice. I said, that's not my husband, that's my ex-partner. He said, wow, you guys have got an amazing relationship. But I've been very intentional on that because he is the father of my child. I've never said a bad word about him. I will never say a bad word about him, and I've purposely built that relationship. And I think that's actually really important to do that, to let that hurt go and just to put the money and those discussions to one side and to build a relationship. And, he's met someone else, and I'm really happy for him and I'm happy for her, and I think that's awesome. And, Arlington, I think my daughter Arlington was always a bit harder on me dating than she was on Dad, which is a bit of a double standard. I don't know what that is. I haven't really unpacked that in a psychological perspective yet, but I think Dad now going out and meeting a beautiful woman and her being so kind to my daughter and having kids, and she's an only child, so now having a little brother and a little sister that are the same age, the dynamics have changed and it's nice. I think people can repartner and we can remake relationships.
Yes. How did you approach the conversation with Arlington, particularly during that period of transition?
Oh, God, there were a lot of conversations, and I'm really lucky because she's an intelligent little person. I've never spoken to Arlington like the child. I speak to her like my equal. I know that's not for everyone, and I try not to lie to her. Sometimes I withhold information that I think is not at her level. But she knows more than most kids. She understands sex, she understands drugs, she understands relationships. She understands how to run a business, what my pressures are. If I'm stressed, I don't burden her, but I talk to her openly, and I think that helps her to get a grip on where I'm at, and helps her to process too. And you know what? She was really my rock. A lot of the times that I was really sad, I'd sit in the garden and cry. She was my rock, you've got this, Mum. A lot of the conversation that I would say to her in building her up and making her strong just came straight back at me. It's nice to see that she was listening and, you've got this, Mum. You'll be okay, Mum. We'll get through this together. So it makes me cry.
Bless her. How old is she?
She's 11, turning 12,
She sounds like such a wise
I know, it's
soul.
amazing. She's an amazing little human, but I think it's important that we don't treat our children as inferior. I don't make my child sit in a separate room. I treat her as my equal and as my best friend. And
you're very much in that sort of dynamic still as she continues to grow, because different challenges as they get into that 20 years. How's that been?
She's fabulous at the moment. She is 20. She's great. We sat there last night, and when I was putting her to bed, she's like, Mum, how old were you when you got your period? I said, gosh, I was a late bloomer, I think, 16 or 17. She's like, wow, Mum, are you scared to put a tampon in? Like, who do you ask that? And I said, she said, Grandma didn't have that conversation with you, did she? I said, no, I got a pamphlet under the door. They were the old days. No one talked about sex. No one talked about drugs. No one talked about stuff, It was so taboo.
Yeah.
But with my daughter, I talk about everything. And I would want her to come to me, if you're scared about something or something's going on in the schoolyard or, you get your period, I want to talk about it. I want to be the first to have that conversation with you. So.
Yeah, that's so beautiful that you fostered that from such a young age, because then, you would think naturally that would progress as she continues to be older, different challenges, but she always knows that you're there to support her, right?
I think you need to put the uncomfortable conversations on the table and do it really early.
Yes.
Do it early, do it often. Yeah. And just be honest and be open, you know? I think that's so important.
Absolutely, to build that trust. Curious, because obviously with your job there's a fair bit of travel. How do you then juggle parenthood with the job and the travel?
I am extremely lucky in that I have an ex-partner who is a wonderful father and a good support for me. I was in Monaco last weekend at Grand Prix, so I was away for 4 days, and then I got back. I was back for 3 days and I was in Noosa for a food and wine festival. I'm back for 2 weeks and I'm going to Paris for the summer to host my champagne tours. So I travel a lot and I'm gone for 5 weeks. And, Arlington said to me, Mom, you're gone for such a long time. You know that hurts me, right? I'm like, well, you can FaceTime me every day. It is difficult, and I understand that she needs me, but at the same time, co-parenting in a really positive way helps.
Yep.
And then he's taking her to Europe for 3 weeks in September. So there's periods of time that we're going to be away, but I think it is about having a healthy and respectful relationship with your ex-partner.
Yes.
And leaning on your friends. I'm so lucky that some of the mums at school support me. Some of the mums at school don't support me. I've recently was at a Mother's Day lunch and, one of the mums is like, well, you're not really at school much. And I'm like, well, do you saying that to the dads?
Yeah, right.
I'm a CEO, I'm a working mum, I've supported our family.
Yes.
You do get a little bit of that backlash when you're not so present in the school activities. But for the most part, there's people that have got my back, and that's just so essential as a working mum.
Does that hurt, hearing the commentary?
Yeah, it does. It does. But, there's enough good people in my world that support what I do.
Yeah.
I've come from a underprivileged background. I grew up in the western suburbs. Yeah. We didn't have a lot of money. I've had to work hard for everything that I have. I've never taken a cent from anyone. I've never married money. Yeah. I've done it on my own. And to give my daughter a private school education is a real proud moment, I would say, for me.
Yes.
So if you want to criticize me for working hard, for generating income for my family, that's okay, but I've done it on my own.
Do you think your upbringing has built that resilience and the hard work? Where's that all come from?
100%.
Yeah.
I remember sitting in my bedroom and I realized at a certain point that, I can play up, I can act up, I can go out, I can hang with the cool kids, or I can just put my head down in a book and I can read. And reading was my education. Reading was my way out, ending up in a career in champagne. I did that. People are like, how on earth have you become a champagne ambassador? Well, I read my way into it. As a little girl, I just read every book I could get my head in because I thought, is this my lot? I'm growing up in the western suburbs. It's such a simple environment. We couldn't afford to go to restaurants. We couldn't afford to go on holidays. We camped every year. It was very simple. Good upbringing, very simple. So my form of escapism was to read, and I read about religion. I read about theology. I read about archaeology. I read about stuff. I love politics. I love business, and I went off to Melbourne University and did a double degree, a commerce degree, majoring in economics, an arts degree, majoring in Mandarin Chinese, and a sub-minor in politics. I started my career in banking, but then I kept reading, and then I read a book on champagne, and that took me off on a certain journey again. So, my upbringing has certainly influenced my life. I knew that I had to work hard to get what I wanted. Nothing's going to come if you just sit on your ass. Sorry for swearing.
Absolutely. Respect.
You've got to fight for what you want, and, you've got to be strong, and you've got to push, and education is a great way to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. My parents, I say they're migrants. My mum was born in this country. She's Greek background, but at the age of 5 went back to Greece. My dad's Nigerian, was born in a village in Africa. So for them, education similarly was everything. So and because they came to Australia with nothing. So a very similar sort of mindset around let's educate ourselves first and then we can sort of build from there.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was on a panel recently for International Women's Day, and there was 4 women on stage, Julia from Star Runner and a few other women, Tracy Spicer, we'd all had amazing careers in our respective career paths, but as we become more versed in each other's story, we realized that a lot of it came from having to struggle, and a struggle is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
As long as you can see through the other side, it's actually really good for building resilience. And that's something that I'm trying to teach my daughter is that if you want something, you need to work for it. Nothing comes from nothing. And if she wants a pair of runners, I'm like, well, you tell me what the cost is, work out the hourly rate of what you think you're worth. You tell me what the task is and you do it. Yeah. You go into my warehouse, you pack boxes, you sweep. Child labour, great. I love it.
Yes, yep.
No problem with child labour.
Yeah. And she does. She helps out.
She does it.
That's awesome.
Her father's not necessarily of the same opinion. He says to me, she doesn't need to work in your business, Kyla. I'm like, I don't need her to work in my business. I need her to earn it. I need her to understand the value of money and that if you want something, you've got to hustle.
Yes.
Nothing comes from nothing.
Nothing comes from nothing. And I think what was it about champagne specifically? You're reading about all these different topics. What got you on the champagne front?
History.
Okay.
The story.
Yeah.
I mean, champagne's of course, it's one of the most beautiful wines on the planet, but it's the story of champagne.
Right.
And I'm a storyteller. I love to share the history of champagne. I'm really just translating 300 years of history to the people, which it's a beautiful thing. But, it was, the wine of kings and queens and interwoven with monks and incredible women, the great dames of Champagne, the amazing Madame Clicquot. She was 27. Her husband died at 26 with a 3-year-old child at his side and 2 wars. And, it's such triumph and tribulation. And I just love telling the stories of Champagne. It's fascinating. It really is intriguing.
You're so unique in that. I'm thinking competitors in the market? Are there many as passionate as you? Who do you?
There weren't even jobs in Champagne when I started. So I'm celebrating 20 years of giving up my career and buying a one-way ticket to Paris and starting again this year, which is wild.
Yes.
It's been such an incredible journey and I'm very blessed to have the career that I have. I won't use the word lucky. I dislike the word lucky because that's not factored into things. But, 20 years this year of giving everything up and buying a one-way ticket and arriving in Paris. I'd even been to Champagne before, so extraordinary. And I've just fallen in love with it and I just keep pivoting. I keep changing. I started working for Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy as an ambassador, originally based in Paris and then in Sydney. But, my French was le crap after doing 6 years in Mandarin. So I was transferred to Sydney and, working in a global organization like LVMH, the culture didn't suit me. There were too many men between me and the top. So I came out on my own as ambassador for Champagne independently. And there was no one in that space.
No.
I was one of the first ambassadors in the world.
And now you're doing a project with Brad Pitt. Can you tell us a bit about this?
I know, it's crazy. I've had an amazing career. So I had the tap on the shoulder about 18 months ago actually with Brad Pitt's team. So obviously Brad and Angelina, they fell in love. They got married in this beautiful chateau, Fleur de Miraval in Provence and make one of the best still wine rosés, which is Fleur de Miraval, same name.
Yep.
And Brad's business partner, the Perrin family, they were talking, they all love champagne. They would always taste champagnes. And he's like, I would love to do a champagne. So they needed a champagne partner. So they partnered with Pierre Peters, an amazing champagne house. So now the 3 Ps, Pitt, Perrin and Peters have created this incredible champagne, an amazing rosé champagne. And they wanted a partner in Australia. So yes, I am business partners with Brad Pitt. That's pretty cool.
That is the coolest. Oh my gosh. And now what's next steps? What happens next?
Oh my goodness. I don't know. It's interesting. Obviously, I'm going to do more TV. I think the next big project for me is a book. I'm a storyteller and I have this story in my head of talking about the great dames of Champagne and Madame Clicquot passing the baton to the amazing Madame Pommery and Madame Pommery passing it to Madame Louis Roederer. These great dames. And I think I'm gonna write the tale. I do need time to do that. And then I think a documentary, telling the history of Champagne. I've written it.
Yes.
I've changed it a little bit. Every time I get on the plane and all my devices switch off, I'm like, oh, hang on a minute. I need to talk about how Jay-Z, came out and started a champagne house because he wanted to boycott Cristal. And then I've got to talk about Madame Louis Roederer going to New York and her owning racehorses and, her reinvigorating champagne in America post depression. And, I've got to tell these stories and the history hasn't been told and it's entirety. So that's probably my next big project is TV and a book.
Very inspiring, girl. Seriously. Oh my gosh. I don't know how you do it all, but I love it. And I want to circle back, obviously, being parenthood. Can you tell us, and I ask every guest this final question, how has parenthood changed you as a person?
I think that I was, a bit of a global roamer and very ambitious.
Yes.
And, I'm a bit on the wild side, so I'm very spontaneous. I just pick up and go. Yeah. I can't do that anymore. And I had a really rough pregnancy. I was sick for the whole 9 months. I vomited every day, and then we both nearly died in labor. They damaged my bowel. I had septicemia, a really traumatic delivery. And then I had this beautiful child, and I think that's my theory. Pregnancy's tough, delivery tough. You end up with this beautiful, calm baby. But it wasn't just about me anymore. All of a sudden, if I'm going to make decisions, I need to factor in this little person who needs me too. Yeah. And that's probably still my greatest challenge today is juggling the 3 parts of your life. Yeah. Me being a mum.
Yes.
Me being a partner. I'm single at the moment, but that'll come potentially at some point. And me being a businesswoman. So, it's not just making decisions about me. It's making decisions about her and her future. And that grounds me in some way.
Yeah, I love that. Kyla, thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you.